I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. And he's back there in the back. And I'm going to read it because it's pretty long. And I have the pleasure of introducing to you Stephen Downes, who works for the National Research Council of Canada, where he served as senior researcher based in Moncton, New Brunswick since 2001. He's affiliated with the Learning and Collaborative Technologies Group at the Institute for Information Technology. He specializes in the fields of online learning, new media, pedagogy, and philosophy. He is perhaps best known for his daily newsletter, the OLDaily, which is distributed by web, email, and RSS to thousands of subscribers around the world. He's published numerous articles, both online and in print, including The Future of Online Learning, Learning Objects, Resource Profiles, and E-Learning 2.0. He's a popular speaker, appearing at hundreds of events around the world over the last 15 years. Prior to joining the NRC, Downes worked for the University of Alberta as an information architect, and prior to that, as distance education and new media design specialist for, Asanini Bioni, is that correct? You're gonna have to correct my pronunciation of that. I was giving it a shot. Community College in Brandon, Manitoba. This followed a decade of teaching experience both in person and by distance with Athabasca University and the University of Alberta and Grand Prairie Regional College. He's a great baseball fan. And he wanted me to tell you that the Blue Jays are on an 8-game winning streak. He flew in on Monday and went straight from the airport to the stadium and got to see the Angels play the Mariners. So I think that was probably, until right now, the highlight of his visit. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Stephen Downes.
Everybody, thank you. And I'm here to report a failure. I thought I would try, because I've never done this before, standing at the back and walking down to the front. I always try new experiences, right? And the theory was, if you do that, the applause will continue all the way. Not so much. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come see this talk. My computer is stopped. I love it. I walk up here. You know what I did, eh? Oh, please don't say. I'm sure I brought it. See, I've forgotten to plug it in, and so now it's off. So we'll get it back on. I have a plug here somewhere. I thought I brought it with me, but fortunately it's got pretty good battery life, so I should be all right.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just now worried that I've lost my plug.
The power plug?
Yeah, but that's okay. I'll worry about that after. All right, so, okay. Am I usually this confused at the start of a talk? Almost invariably. So, first things first, and just so you know, this talk is being recorded, and for those of you listening to the audio, sometime in 2246, this is Stephen Downes, and I'm speaking at Long Beach, California at the Online Teaching Conference. What's the date today? The 20th of June, 2013. So that was 300 years ago. It's kind of like the walk, you can always hope, right? So I'll minimize that. So let's go next to Twitter. And the conference hashtag is CCC OTC13. So there may be people watching this online. Well, I know there's people watching this online. And there may be people watching this on the Google Hangout on Air that I've set up on my website. So if you would like to talk to each other, you can use the Twitter hashtag CCCOTC13. And we already have, Scott James saying Pat James rocks. Can't believe she's retiring. That's nice. And OLDaily telling us that the talk is starting. Or I guess will start eventually. So keep them clean, because you don't know if I'm going to come back here in the middle of my talk at some point. I've been known to do that and catch people off guard. No. So, the title of the talk is What Constitutes Student Success? And that sounds, very scientific and all of that. What I want, the question, it's very distracting. The question I want to put to you today is actually a very simple one. And the idea here is to reframe a little bit what we're thinking. And the question is this: what happens to courses when there are no more tests? You might be thinking that's absurd, that's crazy, that could never happen. By the end of the talk, if nothing else, I hope you get the idea that that's a reasonable possibility, and that this future, therefore, is a future we need to plan for. Right now, we have a very limited, in my view of the course. The course is, as the slide says, a support system for the test. And in that model, really, we have two criteria for the success of a course, whether online, offline, whatever. The first is the student has to actually finish the course. If the student doesn't finish the course, that's a dropout, that's a failure. And then secondly, even if they finish the course, they have to pass the test, because it's all about passing the test. Well, already you can sort of see, I'm sure intuitively, that that's kind of a narrow way of looking at the course. But that way of looking at the course really, it ties in deeply to this kind of cultural sense that we have, not just people in the United States, not just people in Canada, but people generally. I don't think it's unique to any particular culture, this passion for finishing things. When I grew up, and maybe your parents were like this, it was always, finish your supper, there are starving children in, and name your designated country, right? Or, in the infamous words of the famous Yogi Berra, it ain't over till it's over. Gotta play to the last inning, go to the last out, gotta put in 60 minutes, right? And think of our sense of failure, right? Giving up on a book. The Stephen King book, The Dome, I guess the TV version's just coming out, and I've read half of that book. And I'm satisfied with that. Or walking out of a movie or a play. But it's a funny thing. How many of you are bothered by the fact that that picture bleeds off the bottom of the screen and you don't get to see the rest of it? And you never will for the rest of your lives. You will never see. We have this passion, this cultural bias for testing, don't we? And not just testing in education, testing in everything. Eating is outcomes-based. You've heard the expression, the proof is in the pudding, right? And we're not expecting to dig around in the pudding and find a logical formula. It's like the eating, you finish your pudding, and then you'll know if it was good. You can't know ahead of time, even if there's arsenic in it. The need for the resolution of a competition to determine who is the best. And I guess baseball, as I was driving home from a place called Edmundston, that actually worked out really well for me because it was an 18-inning game. They just wouldn't stop. So I couldn't stop listening. But hockey was great. We used to have ties in hockey, but no more. We can't have a tie in hockey anymore. They have to have a shootout because people go to a hockey game, they see a tie. There's this cultural dissonance that they have. I can't handle this. It's a tie. Television, it's not enough that the TV show finishes and you've watched the whole thing. It has to wrap up, right? And it has to have a satisfactory resolution. If I suddenly stopped this talk in mid-sentence and walked away, I guarantee you, your main reaction would be puzzlement and confusion. But, there is an alternative reality out there. And it is an alternative reality that on some level we can understand and comprehend. It's an alternative reality where, eating is to taste the food rather than simply consume it. It doesn't matter if you finish it. What matters is the experience of eating it. The idea of experiencing an event rather than merely attending it. I was at the baseball game, as was mentioned, and it went into extra innings. So I spent all day flying from New Brunswick to California, 4-hour time difference, so I'm jet lagged like crazy. I go to the ball game, so it's like the middle of the night for me, and it goes to extra innings. And of course I stayed. But what was really interesting is 9th inning comes along, and the stadium is like more than half empty. People left. It was okay. Because it wasn't about finishing watching the ball game. It's all about the experience. And that's, you really appreciate it at something like that where, they have the game's on the field, but what they're presenting is this total immersive experience. And that's what going to the baseball game is. And it's, the grass and the popcorn and all of that and the sounds. And it doesn't matter that you didn't see it all the way to the end. You can listen to it on the radio if it really bothers you. But the idea is to experience the event. Go to a library or read a newspaper and you're not consumed with starting at the beginning of finishing it. I had that ambition in grade 5. I was going to read every book in the library, beginning to end, starting with A, ending with Z. I gave up on that in grade 5. You browse, right? You browse the internet. Can you imagine reading everything on the internet and you close your computer? I have finished the internet. Even a newspaper. Who reads a newspaper from beginning to end? Nobody does. So there is this alternative reality. It's the complexity of it all. The complexity of a ball game, the complexity of a forest, the complexity of the news, of food, of anything that tells us we can't have this attitude of just going in there, consuming it and finishing it, and then testing ourselves on it, and we're done. Yay, we win. It just doesn't work like that. We cannot watch everything. Not even in a single game. Not even in a single book. Like they have this phenomenon called close reading because it turns out you can't just read a book. Even when you read a book, you've read every single word, you've missed half of it. We don't have time to read all of the books in the library or all of the articles in the New York Times or even all of a single article on the World Wide Web. I'm linking here to an article that was in Slate, Why You Won't Finish This Article. I finished the article, and at the end it tells me that, actually, at the end it's very funny because the very last 2 characters of the article are TK, which is journalistic speak for to come, all right? The author didn't bother finishing the article because nobody's going to get that far. And that's some statistics of web reading, right? Is your article on the web a failure because people didn't read all the way to the end? See, I don't see it that way. I used to write news articles a lot. And I knew sitting down that 90% of the readers, because they're even worse when they're reading paper newspapers, won't read the last paragraph. So for me, an article was a success, not if I got them to read all the way to the end, but if the first paragraph told them everything they needed to know. And then the rest was just gravy. It really reshapes how you think about writing when you realize 90% of your job is done after the first 23 words. You don't really sweat the rest of it. But you know, it's really easy to say these sorts of things. The challenge, and it is a challenge, is to say how we learn in this alternative reality. If we're not just consuming stuff, how do we learn? What's the story here? We need to have a story with a happy ending, or at least a satisfying ending, or at least an ending. And the other thing we need to know is how we know, both externally and internally, how this learning has been a success. Because if success isn't going to be defined as finishing the course and passing the test, we need to have some kind of sense of what it is. So, let me shift gears a little bit. All of these were thoughts going through my head and going through George Siemens's head and Dave Cormier's head and the heads of a bunch of other people, because, you know, it's not just a single person kind of thing, when we came up with the first massive open online course. And that was, believe it or not, back in 2008. History did not start in 2011. And when we put up this course, our thoughts weren't along the lines of, we need to test people and then find out if they learned what we know. Because we didn't really know what we knew. We still don't know what we know. Whatever that means. And we put up the course, and our first intent of putting up the course was to explain ourselves. Because we had this theory of network learning. George gave it a name. He called it Connectivism. And we fleshed it out quite a bit. And nobody got it. And even those people who got it didn't believe it. And so we had, you know, a following of maybe 2. So we decided to put up this course, and we figured we'd get maybe 20, 25 people in the course. And we got 2,200 people in the course, and the MOOC was born, much to our surprise. And what we wanted to do when we established this course was to put up a course that followed and satisfied the principles of connectivism. So what we considered success in this course was going to be based on whatever success was from a connectivist point of view in learning. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this talk. And the journalist in me says, that was the nut paragraph. And you might be wondering, what's the nut paragraph? It's what this talk is about in a nutshell. And if you've made it to the nut paragraph of a story, you're with about 50% of the readers who don't even make it past the opening introduction. So what are MOOCs? Because I know, because you can't get away from them these days. I know you've heard a lot about what a MOOC is, probably too much about what a MOOC is. Here's my take, and I know there are people from Coursera here and whatever, but here's my take. The MOOC is, first of all, massive. It's not massive as, you know, a success term, because lots of things are massive but are not MOOCs. It's massive in the sense that you've built it in such a way ahead of time that it could support a lot of people. Now, to me, what that means is you've built it according to network principles, but a lot of people think of a MOOC in terms of a broadcast because they're still in this whole consume the information thing. But simply broadcasting to a whole bunch of people doesn't make it massive. It just means you've broadcast it to a whole bunch of people. We have to keep in mind it's a course, right? It's not, you know, LA Law or Law and Order or whatever, right? We expect some interaction. We expect some learning to take place. We expect it to be more than just a broadcast. So the mechanism, the design of the course has to be to support this massive level, not simply of receiving content, but this massive level of engagement. I could talk for the rest of the day about how you do that, but they won't let me do that. So it has to be open. And many of the new MOOCs haven't really comprehended this principle. So let me tell you what open is, and then they'll tell you why I'm wrong. Open means it's free. Open means there aren't barriers to getting into the thing. That it doesn't make you sign up, that it doesn't make you tell them your blood type, your mother's maiden name, all of that sort of stuff. You don't need to give them a credit card number. Open means free and libre. Not just getting in and seeing the stuff, but being able to take the stuff and do stuff with it, mess it around, mix it up, and so on. It needs to be online. It's funny, you know, I'm reading people like Michael Feldstein and others talking about how your massive open online course doesn't need to be online. And there's a whole phenomenon out there, this thing called the wrapped MOOC, and what it is you treat a MOOC not as a course but as a textbook, and then you have an in-person course and you wrap the course around the MOOC, so it's a wrapped MOOC. But if you do that, it's no longer a MOOC. It's just a course with some electronic reading material. And then finally, it needs to actually be a course. And that turns out, surprisingly again, to be important. You know, because you can have massive open online communities, massive open online games, massive open online websites, video collections, like Khan Academy and all of that, but it needs to be a course. And what that means is, has a start point, has an end point, and has stuff in the middle, and it's usually about some sort of subject, topic, or theme. It has some kind of interaction, some kind of development or progress occurring inside of it. So it needs to be all of those things. And so when we designed our course, these were the basic principles we used. That's why it came to be called a MOOC. We didn't make up the name. The name was made up by Dave Cormier and Brian Alexander, and it was descriptive of what we created. Now, since then, there have been the big elite universities have taken notice, which is actually quite surprising because it's almost the first online learning the big elite universities have taken notice of, but they have. Openness isn't really in their culture, but they tried. And so they gathered collections of resources, centralized them. You go to Coursera, you go to Udacity, you go to edX, have mass events. You know, it's kind of like TED Talks, right? You know, you have your live TED Talk and everybody's listening to the TED Talk. So you have what they call the greatest professors in the world, which, you know, if you ask me, I wonder, who's keeping score here? Who's the one doing, oh, it's them, okay. And then especially the Stanford AI course had quizzes and things with automated grading. And these are pretty impressive, pretty sophisticated pieces of technology. But they're very different from what we were doing. And what we were doing were MOOCs, as I say, the connectivist way, where the learning experience is based on community, it's based on conversation, it's based on sharing of culture and ideas and perspectives, and most importantly, they are, as we say, distributed. This turns out to be a really important characteristic. What do I mean by that? That's what I mean by that. That's a course. You might not believe that that's a course, but that's what George and I built at the start of our CCK08 course. The diagram itself was created by one of the students in the course who, being completely lost, had no idea where anything was, so that's kind of what came out of it. Kind of looks like your campus, doesn't it? Sorry, I couldn't resist that. I'm standing there in the bright sun. Oh, where is the auditorium? Why isn't there a big H on this building? That's my design suggestion. I made it within 5 minutes of being here. I'm told you shouldn't do that, but I couldn't help it. The idea here is, in contrast to the typical course where you begin at the beginning and then move through the individual elements and then finish at the end and then do a test, we just kind of put stuff out there and set up a whole bunch of links in between it. And that course isn't on a single website. We did set up a Moodle learning management system. That's the square stuff in the upper left-hand side. We set up a wiki. We set up a Google Groups. We set up a Facebook page. What else did we do? The students set up not one, but 3 separate Second Life communities. It's 2008, and Second Life was still a thing then. Twitter feeds, delicious groups, and all of that. And so our course didn't exist in one place. It existed in, well, at the beginning of the course, it existed in about 7 or 8 different places. By the end of the course, there was a minimum of 180 separate locations where this course was, bits of the course. The whole idea of the course is distributed all over the web in Blogger blogs, Tumblr tumbles, Posterous posts, some live journal accounts. I forget all the different authoring systems people used. And what we did is we connected it all together. And you might ask, why did we do that? We're following the following design principles. And again, I have like a whole long talk I could give about these design principles, but I won't, because they'll drag me off the stage. No, diversity, diversity. And I can't, anyhow. So the main design principles of the MOOC are as follows: autonomy, diversity, openness, and interactivity. Just for fun, later on, if you're talking to someone from, say, Coursera, ask them how they fit these principles. Autonomy. Autonomy means that the learner or the student or the participant, whatever you want to call them, is self-motivated, self-directed, has their own objectives, their own purpose, their own ends in mind, chooses their own technology, makes their own decisions. Going into the course, our objective was to allow people to use whatever technology they wanted in order to take the course. Rather than make them come to us, we would design a course that went to them. That turned out to be radical and subversive and not really followed a whole lot. But the students really liked it. Diversity. You know, there's the stereotypical notion of diversity where, you know, cultural groups, linguistic groups, etc. But we took diversity really seriously. Diversity is a value and an asset for reasons I'll talk about later on. And we think of diversity in terms of the language people use. We didn't have a set language for the course. George and I would speak in English. Some people would translate, but people participating in the course could use whatever language they wanted, because why not? And, you know, there's Google Translate, which sort of more or less works, but if people want to follow the course in Spanish, and 2 of the 3 Second Life groups were Spanish groups, then they can. It's great. People could use different learning technologies. Again, as before, they have different objectives, different purposes. Some people were just interested in sampling. Some people logged onto our course with the specific purpose of criticizing the instructors, that'd be George and myself, and calling us techno-communists. And as odd as that was, that is a legitimate purpose for joining the course. It's kind of hard to deal with, but you know, that's what comes under diversity, and it's all good. Openness. Openness isn't just a slogan. What it meant is the very practical challenge of making sure that the resources we used in the course were open resources, so that when you clicked on the link to the resource, you got the resource and not a subscription form, a registration screen, a redirect, or whatever. So we based our course not on us building a whole bunch of content ahead of time and then setting it up, and so, you know, the typical way, but we said, you know, there's all kinds of material out there on the internet on our topic. It's all what they call open educational resources. A lot of it's freely licensed, so people can use it and reuse it. We'll base our course around that. And so our course consisted of linking to open educational resources out there on the internet. And you might think, well, that's a bit complicated. Why would you do that? Mainly, we had no budget. Like, we mounted our course for a budget of, well, zero. And so we couldn't afford to create resources for the course. And in so doing, we saved ourselves, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000. But we didn't need to anyways. And the other thing, too, is as instructors in the course, we didn't want to be the ones to choose all of the resources, so we had the participants bring in their own resources or create their own resources. The whole idea here is that anything that people could get their hands on and link to in the course so that other people could look at, that counted as a course resource. Because our course was set up more like a library or a newspaper or a baseball game than a book. Interactivity. I'll talk a lot more about interactivity, but the concept here is the manner in which the course was conducted was not that there is some knowledge here in someone's head which is distributed out to people. That wasn't the model at all. Rather, the model was everybody has some knowledge, everybody has a different perspective, and they interact together, and that's what produces the learning. It's a different model of learning, and again, I'll talk a bit more about that through the course of this talk. Don't have a whole lot of time, but I should be able to manage it. So the pedagogy, such as it is, wasn't your standard kind of pedagogy. The pedagogy, this is what we told people to do in the course. First of all, aggregate. Go out there into the world. Don't look to us, right? Go out there into the world, find stuff that is relevant to what we're talking about today, and bring it back in. That's aggregate. Or if you want, produce stuff. We told people, create your own blogs, create your own Flickr accounts. We will, as course managers, aggregate or bring in all of your content. It's kind of like using a Twitter hashtag. I don't have time to check it, I'm sorry, but I will be reading them. Where all of you are participating in this talk, right? And if I had more time, if I had a second screen, we'd be watching it. All right, well, all of you are participating. And then the course manager brings together all of these different points of view, aggregating. Remixing. You take this, you join it together. You take this, you join it together. The whole idea of remixing is selecting and associating, Repurposing is a process of translation. It's a process of taking stuff that was written in gibberish and translating it into words that you understand. It's a process of localization. It's a process of culturalization, of making things your own. And then feeding forward. It's a process of sharing. And the sharing turns out to be really important because your perspective on what you're doing is completely different when you know that somebody's listening. It's kind of like the Heisenberg principle applied to education. Think about how you learn in your job right now. You all work as educators or educational technologists or whatever. You have professional careers, and you need, because of the nature of your discipline, you need to learn stuff almost on a daily basis, right? There's always something new. The topic we're talking about in this conference almost didn't exist last year. So how do you learn? Well, probably you don't take courses. Probably you put yourself into a network, or you're already in a network, and you connect with other people. Yeah, you run into a problem in the office, you don't take a course. You phone someone up and ask them, how do you work through this, right? That's the model we were attempting to create. We're thinking of learning not as a static event that starts and finishes and then you're done and you take a test, but learning from this model of this ongoing process, this ongoing iterative, you do it, you do it, you do it again, in this network of communication and interaction with other people. It's not a consumptive process. It's not what Paulo Freire would say, a banking model where you bank information in your head. It's an interactive, immersive process. It's a reflective process. It's not just doing, mindless doing, but it's doing and thinking about it, doing and thinking about it. I have a theory of education, a theory of learning. It really shouldn't be called a theory because it's way too simple. And it's probably not mine in any case. But here's what the theory is. To teach is to model and demonstrate. To learn is to practice and reflect. And what makes this simple theory work is the fact that where this learning is happening inside a network. And you're undertaking these network activities of aggregating, remixing, repurposing, feeding forward. The MOOC, properly so called, is one half of a two-sided equation. The MOOC really is the modeling and demonstrating part. And then the learning is the practicing and reflecting part. If you think about it, what were George and I trying to do with our original CCKA 08 MOOC and all the rest of the MOOCs? We weren't trying to sum up some knowledge in nice, neat packages which we would then deliver to the grateful masses. Rather, because we didn't know anyways, so we had no idea what we were doing. What we tried to do in this MOOC was to model our process, to model our thinking. If we were physicists and wanted to offer a course, instead of getting up and lecturing about physics, we would have shown people actually doing physics, or ourselves actually doing physics. I don't know if you got any coverage of Chris Hadfield here. He's a Canadian astronaut. He's recently commander of the International Space Station. Chris Hadfield became a big hero in Canada because he modeled and demonstrated the practice of being an astronaut. He took pictures from space. He did things like he took a washcloth. And what happens to water in a washcloth when you wring it out in space? It turns out the water gets all over your hands. It doesn't drip, obviously. All kinds of stuff like that. It was just amazing. So the teaching part is to model and demonstrate your actual practice, and then the learning part is to look at this and then try to do it yourself. And if you think about it, this is, in fact, how you learn, mostly, isn't it? And if it isn't, ask yourself, well, is the speaker wrong? Because I might be. Or maybe I should think about how I'm learning and maybe I can improve it. One or the other must be the case. Now, why do it that way? Well, it begins with what knowledge is and what learning is. And you know, it's funny, we almost sleepwalk through life. It's like we sleepwalk through this whole desire to finish things, and there's this whole alternative reality out there. We sleepwalk through what our understanding of knowledge is, and we think we know what knowledge is. But, you know, it's kind of like watching a baseball game. There's nobody there. No, okay, I was trying to make it work with the picture. It doesn't always work with the picture. What is knowledge? You know, is knowledge a bunch of sentences like Paris is the capital of France and Barack Obama is the president and that's a brown bag? Is that knowledge? Well, clearly not. But what is it? Well, right now, through this whole postmodernist age, we're going through this fundamental reshaping and re-understanding, socially, culturally, of our very idea of what knowledge is. And the connectionist approach and the MOOC approach is a reflection of this. The old notion of knowledge, the one we're moving away from, is this idea of knowledge as fact-based. That's not to say there are no facts. There are facts, and they're really useful things, right? If I walk into that wall, I'm going to get a broken nose. That's a fact, and it's useful to know that. But knowledge isn't just facts. The old picture of universals, right? If you know something, you're able to describe something that's universally true of it. We know about gravity because we have principles of gravity. Force equals mass times acceleration. That's a principle, it's a law of nature, that's an item of knowledge. Categories, that's a duck, that's a rabbit, that's a goose, that's a moose. Try doing that on the fly. You know, everything is neatly sliced and diced. Everything proceeds according to universal principles, and knowledge is simply knowing what everything is and what everything does all the time. And we've learned since then that the world doesn't work like that. Take the weather, for example. The weather doesn't work like that. The weather is a complex system. And if there's a rainstorm or not a rainstorm over a city at a given point, there's no one reason why that was the case. It's a whole bunch of different reasons that converge together in unpredictable ways that result in that weather pattern. A person's behavior. Psychologists have tried for years, but there are no universal principles of persons' behaviors. Otherwise, everybody would behave the same when presented with the same phenomenon, but we know that that's not the case. The new model of knowledge is knowledge of similarities, knowledge of patterns. It's what I call, and maybe I shouldn't say what I call because that's always a dead giveaway, but what I call knowledge as recognition. It's a different thing, right? Think about it. It's not the same as knowledge as remembering. You can remember that Paris is the capital of France, but knowing Paris is, if you get there, you recognize, oh yeah, I'm in Paris. It's a different kind of epistemic reality. And the basis of that is that knowledge defined on this new model isn't a collection of sentences. That's the old theory. It's the brain writing theory, right? Yeah, and you collect a whole bunch of sentences like you would a whole bunch of books in a library. Knowledge rather is the actual physical organization of the brain. What you know literally is the set of connections between neurons in your mind. What a society knows literally is the set of connections between the people in the society and the artifacts created by those people in the society. It's that pattern that constitutes knowledge, not a collection, not a pile, but a pattern. We sometimes say the knowledge is in the network, but it would be more accurate to say the knowledge is the network. When we set up our connectivist course, we set up this whole great web, this whole great network. The knowledge wasn't in the contents that we contained in that network. The knowledge was that network itself. And so people would study the course not by looking at the content, but rather by immersing themselves and experiencing the network. How does this create knowledge? Well, there's a mechanism or a phenomena called emergence. And the idea here is from many small, interrelated, organized entities, a pattern can emerge. And if you think about it, think about your television or your video screen, for those of you who no longer have televisions. Technology is really changing. Anyhow, both of them are composed of a whole bunch of pixels on the screen, right? You know this. Everyone knows this. And when you look at your television or your video screen, you don't see a whole bunch of pixels, although that's what you're looking at. You see somebody's face. Richard Nixon. You see Richard Nixon on your television, and you know Richard Nixon isn't really on your television. What you're seeing is an organization of pixels, and you look at it and you recognize, oh yeah, that's Richard Nixon. See, and these are the two sides of the new epistemology. On the one hand, the knowledge is the organization, but on the other hand, you need to have a perceiver to recognize that organization. And so when we learn, our neural nets shape themselves into a pattern such that when we look at a bunch of pixels, our neural net goes, oh, that's Richard Nixon, except it doesn't really do that, but what it does is a pattern in our neural network is activated when we're presented with the phenomena. So that's a hard concept. Hard concept. This might make it easier. That mess on the upper right, not the person, that's Hopfield, but that net beside him, that's his net, that's your brain. Your brain, well, it's a simplified representation of your brain, obviously. It's not literally your brain, because otherwise you'd be dead, because your brain's up on the screen. Your brain consists of a whole bunch of interconnected neurons. And when you look at a tree, look what happens, right? The connections, I've illustrated them in red, fire up. A signal gets sent from one neuron to the next. So you have a pattern of neurons firing, just like a pattern of pixels on your TV, a pattern of neurons in your head. They fire up. So when you look at that tree, that pattern activates. That pattern is, when that pattern fires up, that is your experience of seeing a tree. You have a conscious experience of seeing a tree. What that is that pattern of neurons firing. It's well established. I'm not making this up. I'd love to make this up, then I'd be famous, but it's well established. Now, what's really interesting, incredibly interesting, is we use the same neural net for multiple perceptions. This is where things get really confused. See, we have the tree there that we saw, and that's the red things. But then the little puppy, which everybody goes, ah, right? When everybody goes, ah, that's that little set of ah neurons firing in your head. And that's the green. And then over there, the couch, and that fires off a different set of neurons. And you look at these things and you recognize them. The reason why you recognize them is you've seen trees before, you've seen puppies before, you've seen couches before, and over time, as you see them over and over, each one is associated with a distinctive pattern of connections between these neurons. So when you see it again, that same pattern is activated. That's knowing what a tree is, knowing what a puppy is. Now, traditional theories can't really comprehend what it is to know what a puppy is, except, you have a whole bunch of rules. A puppy is four-legged, except when they're not. A puppy has fur, except after he's been shaven. You get into trouble. But what about even these vague concepts like redness, or the number 17, or the concept of the power law, or even one, as in one puppy, one couch, one tree? You need these complex representations in order to come up with the whole concept. But what matters here is your perception of a tree is related to your concept of one, which is related to your concept of a puppy, which means the next time you see a puppy, you're going to learn something about trees. Try testing for that. In fact, the whole concept of testing you about puppies makes no sense if part of your knowledge about puppies is embedded in how you react to trees. But if you think about it, it'll never be on the test. But if you think about it, take a puppy, take a tree, you know what happens. Personal knowledge is the organization of the neurons in our head. Public knowledge is the organization of knowledge, or organization of artifacts, including people in society. And again, there's a wealth of science underlying this, describing the mathematics in graph theory, describing how you can build these with computers, which is the theory of connectionism, people like Rumelhart and McClellan and others. Social network theory, Duncan J. Watts and Alfred Laszlo Barabasi, among others. So the human mind can come to know, the society can come to know, any network can come to know. So what is our pedagogy? How do we think about our pedagogy? It's based on this principle. So when I ask what is learning, you already know what learning is. To learn is to acquire a certain network state, except not a certain network state, but one appropriate to your environment. So what is a learning theory really? A learning theory is the story of how those connections are formed between those individual neurons. You know, that's one thing about the approach that George and I take. You know, we don't treat learning as a black box. We don't treat learning with, you know, some magical phrase like making meaning, right? Learning is a concrete physical process that occurs according to physical observable rules. And you can see them in operation in society, and you can see them in operation in the human brain. There are, in fact, dozens, hundreds of learning theories describing different ways connections can form between neurons. Here's three. Hebbian association, named after the Canadian psychologist Donald O. Hebb, summarized in the slogan, "What fires together, wires together." I know, it's kind of, but you have to take two neurons. If they're activated at the same time, if they're not activated at the same time, it's a matter of physiology. A connection, a neural link, a synapse forms between them. It's like attracts like. It's actually a principle you know in your own lives. Birds of a feather flock together. That's a learning theory. There's another one called back propagation. That one's described at length by Rumelhart and McClellan in their two-volume set, Parallel Distributed Processing, seminal work. Lots of criticisms of it, but, oops, I forgot my screen is touch sensitive. Go forward. Oh, not that far forward. So, back propagation is the idea. You have a set of neurons that are wired together in a certain way. Send them input, it produces output, aggregate, feed forward, right? And then once you get the output, then there's a pushback, right? Was it the appropriate output? If it was, great. If it wasn't, push it back, and you feed back the signal back through the network, and so that the error is propagated and all your links are corrected. So back propagation is basically a computational representation of feedback and feedback mechanisms, and we know as educators how important feedback is. But this is why it's important. Boltzmann mechanisms, my favorite. I love Boltzmann mechanisms. Boltzmann mechanisms are based on the principles of thermodynamics. Simple principle. Throw a stone into a pond. Produces all kinds of kinetic energy. We call that a splash. And then over time, the pond settles, ripple, 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 and eventually it's flat again. That process is the evening out of the energy of the pond to its most stable state. Same kind of thing can happen in a network, right? Because a network is, especially a neural network, is a series of electrical potentials between neurons. So shake them up, give them a wild, crazy experience. Really disturbs you. You're thinking about it, you can't get over it. But over time, it settles out and you learn whatever lesson that you've learned from it. Boltzmann mechanism. I could talk more about that. Again, they'll drag me off the stage, kicking and screaming. No, Boltzmann, you need to learn this. Takes us back to the Downs theory of pedagogy. The Downs theory of pedagogy is based on those learning principles. What is learning? We use our connections in a network, our social model, our community model. We interact with each other. We immerse ourselves so that we get experience and form a neural network. We use a physical network to create a neural network. We need to think of learning as more like exercising than the acquisition of facts, right? We're building connections between our neurons in the same kind of way as we're building muscles in our arms or in our legs. It's not a one-time thing. It's the sort of thing that needs practice. It needs reflection. You need to do it over and over and over again. And we ask, what is it to finish exercising? Well, the question doesn't even make sense. The exercising is finished when you stopped. Sorry, that was grammatically backwards. The exercise is finished when you stop. Now, the question that I started this presentation with is, how do you know you've succeeded? How do you know the learning has happened? How do you know you've grown that kind of set of connections in your mind? Well, we recognize our learning by our performance in the network. And you can sort of see, right, there's almost this mirroring back and forth happening here. It's not a direct mirroring. That would be a bit much to hope for. It'd be great, but it's just not going to work out that way. But there's this mirroring happening, right? The network teaches you, and then you interact in the network. How do you know somebody can play baseball? Put them on a field, have them throw a ball. If they throw a ball and it goes like 2 feet, they probably didn't learn how to play baseball. But you know, if they can not only throw a ball and bat the ball, but they can talk to other baseball players and they use the words properly. You know, they don't say, you know, we're going into overtime. They say we're playing extra innings, stuff like that. That's how you know they've learned the game. So the idea of a MOOC is, in this case, to create a learning environment, a network-based learning environment where the person is in the center, connected to a whole bunch of distributed resources, and then to create activities and practices and interactions in that network. That is the process of learning, but that is also the process of the evaluation of learning. That's what we built, and I built an application called Grasshopper in order to create that kind of learning network. So, because I'm almost at the point where they're going to drag me off the stage. I don't want to go, but they're going to make me. What constitutes success in a network? Oh, here's Michael S. Roth teaching a Coursera course, interestingly, and he's president of Wesleyan University. And once he actually taps into the course, his first reactions, I was astonished at the level of activity. And then he looks at it. Study groups were forming based on language, geography, Spanish, Portuguese groups, Bulgaria, Russia, Boston, and India. I don't know how Boston gets in there. That's kind of, that's an odd one. Which of these things does not belong? You know, this whole associationist theory of learning, you understand the brilliance of Sesame Street when they did this, you know, which of these things does not belong. It's all about recognizing, you know, and you can just see that, no, Boston doesn't belong there. But the interesting thing is his experience isn't of, oh yes, we delivered content successfully, that's how I knew it was working, or they passed the test successfully, no. His response, his immediate intuitive understanding that his course was a success was when he saw this fully functioning network happening out there. So what are the conditions? First, actually being in a network. Right? That's a condition of success. That's how you know that your learning is successful, that your course is successful, is you actually find yourself in a network. It's not you versus the rest of the world, but you begin to be able to place yourself within the context of other people, within the context of other things happening. Second set of conditions of success. Well, I drew this from Google, and we can take it or leave it. But Google looks at network metrics. And again, there are people who talked about this ad nauseum. But generated awareness, increasing sales, driving loyalty, all of that. What's your clout score? I'm not big on those sorts of things, but on the other hand, I recognize that success in a network will have tangible outputs that we can observe and we can know. They might not be measurable outputs, and they might not be directly related to the content in the network. I'm sometimes asked, what would you say somebody's successful education was? And my first response is, well, he didn't go to jail. That's good. He's still alive. He's managed, not to walk in front of a train or get into a car accident or whatever. Didn't take a bad combination of drugs. That's successful. Yes, but did he learn calculus? Well, I'll get to that. But really, in the grand scheme of things, being alive, being out of jail, being happy, these are all the important outcomes of education. So there are metrics, but they're hard to get at, and they're not exactly lined up. Awareness, you do an advertising campaign, you get awareness. That's not a content thing. But there's more. Support. That's when you begin to feel that your participation in this learning environment has been a success. When you're getting not just the metrics, people aren't just following your blog, but when you run into trouble, there's people there to help you. There's this whole sense of not being alone in the world. One of the very first reactions to internet learning, I remember it as clear as day, Claire Brooks from Australia, from Western Australia. It was 1995 or something like that. She did a video presentation. She was completely amazed at these farmers out in the outback in Australia who were individually each very interested in knitting. And it makes no sense until you realize it's Australia. Australia, sheep, farmers, knitting, it all comes together. But the thing is, each of them thought he was the only rugged farmer out there interested in knitting, until they were able to get online, and then they were able to form a knitting community, and then they realized this sense of support and reinforcement. And it's interesting, support is one of these tangible things we all know it exists. It's really hard to nail down and measure, isn't it? Because it's not a measuring kind of thing. It's a recognition kind of thing. Network perspective. This is a hard one to nail down because it's different in every circumstance. I see somebody's listening to the live streaming version of this talk. That's funny. I would laugh more, except I've actually done that while giving the talks. It just messes with you. What's the real talk here? Anyhow? So the network perspective is this. Understanding you have a variety of inputs. In this diagram, it's like project centrality, project density, financial support, complexity, type of language, etc. It's the set of inputs to a software programming project, right? And then you have complexity of output. So you have more than one objective. And I'm sure you all know the feeling of working with differing and possibly even conflicting objectives. Here we've got development activity as one outcome and popularity as another outcome. And they very often go against each other. Just ask anyone who's done open source programming. It would be so cool, but nobody will like it. But it'd be so cool. So when you find yourself in this environment where you're able to comprehend and understand in kind of an intuitive recognition kind of a way these different priorities, these different outcomes, that's a sign that you're looking at the subject from a network perspective, and that's a condition of success from the course. That comprehension of understanding. And then maybe even innovation. Because the whole principle of the theory here is learning isn't just about the propagation of an idea from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. When a network learns, what it learns are not the contents of the individual neurons. That would be absurd, because that would mean if all a human could learn is, electrochemical potentialities, and that won't tell you what Paris is. When a network learns, it's the emergent pattern from this interaction. It's something new. When a group of us gets together, like all of us in this conference gets together, we know learning has happened not when you remember what the keynote said, because I guarantee you, you're going to walk out that room, you're going to go, I'd love to get the slides because I can't remember a word of what he said. And that's okay. Because the learning isn't you remembering what I said. The learning is what new comes out of the interaction of all of you. And none of us knows yet what that learning is going to be. But when it happens, and it won't always happen, it won't happen for all of you, but when it happens, you'll recognize it. And you'll have that aha moment. Oh, yeah, I get it. And you will know at that point that this experience, this conference, has been a success. But it's one of these things, I mean, if you concentrate on trying to memorize the stuff that was said, you're less likely to get that aha moment. But if you take that content, you work with it, you make it your own, you remix it, you feed it forward, you tweak the conference, you interact, you're more likely to get that aha moment. So, my slides, for those of you who will want them later because you've forgotten everything I've said, will be found later today or tomorrow, depending on internet access, at my website, which is www.downs.ca. You'll also get the audio recording, which hopefully worked, and a link to the YouTube video, which hopefully worked. That's it. I guess I don't have a place to finish. Thank you very much.